Hey, what's going on, peeps? This is your man, Derek Terry, host of I'm Not Complaining, I'm Just Saying, where you're going to complain. Be prepared to bring solutions to the table. Hey, in my series of interviews that I'm going to be having with Charles County Board of Education at-large candidates, my first guest is going to be Christopher Alberts. So sit back, take notes, and like always, be an educated, well-informed voter. Hope you enjoy the show. Peace and blessings.
All right, so welcome, people. Welcome. Once again, this is your man, Derek Terry, host of I'm Not Complaining, I'm Just Saying, where if you're going to complain, brings a solution to the table. And I want to welcome one of our solution makers, Charles County Board of Education candidate, Christopher Alberts, a.k.a. Chris. Welcome, Chris. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to get into it like we always do. So tell us about the man. The person, Chris.
I'm just an average Joe, just like everybody else. I'm a parent and a community member here in Charles County. I'm also a teacher of 20 years. I teach in DC public schools. My activity in Charles County thus far has been that of your average parent. Or I have kids who are in schools. I go and attend games and concerts and try to get as involved as my two daughters allow me to be, because they are very protective of their personal space when it comes to school, and their dad being a teacher, often they try to hold me at arm's length. They think I'm an intimidating person when I talk to their teachers and their friends and whatnot. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, grew up, born and raised in Detroit proper. I came to the Washington, D.C. metro area in 1999 to attend Howard University, graduated with a bachelor's in music and secondary education. Went on to start my teaching career right out of college, moved to Charles County back in 2006. My wife and I bought our first house in Indian Head, Maryland. And then we moved to Waldorf in 2011.
Okay.
2011.
All right. So definitely I see some commonalities when it comes to us. I'm not from Detroit, but I got family out there in Flint.
Okay.
And I don't have a connection to Howard University in terms of going there, but the foundation I work with, Like the Way Foundation, we do a summer film camp there at Howard University. So as people always say, Howard is the real HU.
Absolutely.
From the historical points it is, because we know Hampton was Hampton Institute, but I'm repping Towson. So but yeah, so that's good stuff. So what made you want to run for the board?
So when you look at the board now as it's made up, it's a very eclectic collection of professionals, right? We have people who are IT professionals, and we have former military, and we've got engineers, and we have finance people, a lot of eclectic professionals, and I'm sure very good in their own right, but not the foundation of what I think the board should have, which is educators. How can we have a board of education that doesn't understand what a teacher needs, what students need on a day-to-day level, like in the classroom level? The foundation should be the actual practical experience that goes on in the day-to-day. What are those policies that you're coming up with? How are they really going to sail in the classroom, in a school? And I think that a teacher brings that to the table.
All right. And I have to agree, one, being a former educator, and those who know or don't know, I ran unsuccessful, but at the same time, that was one of my pet peeves, is that you didn't have anybody in there who was in the education arena. And it's not to say that it's required or anything like that, but one of the things that I wanted to focus on was just make sure, we always have diversity. So what I have right now, and I pulled this up just so people can look at it real quick. I asked all candidates if they didn't have a website to provide me with their platform, and I'm gonna let you know, Chris has 28 pages. Now, we know we're not going over 28 pages, but there's some things that I want to touch on. So I kind of just wanted you to, and this will be available. I'll put it in the not necessarily the chat, but I'll have it on my link. So if people want to go to it and look at it at their leisure, they can look at it at their leisure. But I just wanted to show that this is pretty much, how it has everything laid out. And this is 28 pages worth. So people can read that at their leisure. Okay. So I just want to take this off.
Not a leisure read.
Yeah. And so one of the things I want to talk about when I looked at your platform is the Maryland Blueprint. In terms of the Maryland Blueprint, how would you as elected official try to secure the funding? Because it seems like that's going to be more of an issue than anything.
Yeah, and that's going to be an issue that I think that because of the nature of everything that's in the blueprint, it's far too much to go into in the setting. We're going to have to sit down as a community and talk about what's important, because there's going to have to be some financial stewardship things that we're going to have to decide. Where are our tax dollars going to go? How are we going to shift funds? One of the major components of the blueprint is teachers are getting a raise, which they should. You could pay teachers twice as much as what we're paying them now, and it still wouldn't be enough. But that money has to come from somewhere. And typically in the education system, when teachers get raises, the very next thing that happens is teachers lose jobs. And I don't think we shouldn't be penalizing teachers for getting their fair return in education. So we have to have conversations as a community. What do we want to prioritize? And then we have to figure out how to come about that money. A few things that I think we could do with partnership with local businesses and larger corporations. By doing so, we could offset some of the costs that we need to put into schools.
Okay, so what you're saying is when you're sifting through your budget, the things that the taxpayer would normally pay for, you would try to get the, maybe sports budget or whatever it may be.
Right.
I have no sponsorship. I think to some degree they do that, but I don't think they do it with a lot of vigor or aggressive about it. But yeah, that's a good point. So another part of your platform, I think it falls under potential, unleashing the unique talents within. And I was going to read the parts that I have in here. Tailor educational approaches to students' strengths, interests, and learning style. So I had an interesting conversation with my wife yesterday. And I said, I think this is good, and it's just my opinion. But it seems like it would be putting more work on the teacher. Not only you have to do a lesson plans, and now you're saying it's sort of like special educators, because we have to do IEPs that tailor to the needs of that specific student. So within your platform, are you suggesting that teachers have to come up with individual plans, like they're doing a portfolio or the evaluation, or just for selective students?
So it does seem on the surface that I'm talking about just giving the work to the teachers. And again, not at all. I think that we need to go back to ground zero in education as a whole. Our entire education system is focused, or is built on the industrial complex revolution of the early 1900s. That's not the world we live in anymore. So we have to go back to the drawing board and reevaluate what that looks like. By doing so, and starting from kindergarten up, and it's slowly built in, now we're able to tailor education based on the portfolios that we're building as we go. Okay. And that will help us to filter students in the proper directions and give them the access to education where they're at, instead of where we want them to be based on testing and whatnot.
What grade levels would this be universal from K to 12, pre-K, or you a pilot? You started, I don't know, and I do know with elementary school teachers, they are bless their heart. That's all I can do.
Absolutely.
I couldn't do it. I have a couple cousins and I couldn't do it. But
in a perfect world, I would think that we would, again, it would eventually become a K through 12 thing. I think that the easiest way to make change is to slowly do it, not, drip, 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 but like decide we're going to start with kindergarten, first and second grade. And then the next year, those kids go to third grade, and now we have kindergarten, first, second, and third, and then so on and so forth until we are at that point. I think part of our issue in Charles County is that we don't make long-term plans where we're trying to strike now and get the credit now. Yeah. And that's just not how it works.
It's gratification. It's the gratification.
I don't need credit. I need the result.
Um,
And by laying out the foundation for it to happen over time, I'm willing to accept the fact that I'm not going to get the credit, but I will see that result, and it's going to serve the community as a whole later on.
okay. So one of the other things I saw in there, I think it dealt around extracurricular activities or enrichment programs. And with most activities that happen after school, you have to have a staff sponsor. So how do you motivate students and staff without burning them out? Meaning that, because I know that it's me as a former educator, Mr. Terry, can you be our sponsor for the chess club or the spades club or whatever? We played spades, so but we weren't gambling, but we had a spades club, and so I would be burnt out. I couldn't do everything. And that's back in my single days. I mean, imagine when you get married, you have kids. So how do you propose to motivate students and staff without burning them out?
So again, I think we need to reevaluate how we do this. We need to be almost we need smaller communities. We need to go back to a community type mindset where we are involving members of the community. You said spades. Spades is great. I play spades. 1,000 other people play spades. Why not vet trained community members who can come in and fill those club sponsorships? Why does it have to be a teacher?
That's a good point. Good point. So going to another topic, the collegiate pathways. It's very interesting to look at that. And we had a conversation earlier in regards to dual enrollment program. Some will say, well, we currently have that. But before we get into it, I just want to kind of give the viewers a historical context and just my personal opinion, that Charles County is behind in education and CTU opportunities. As much as I hear people talk about negatively about Baltimore City, DC, or Prince George's, they at least have a pathway to college where a student can earn a high school diploma and an associate degree upon high school completion. My wife actually had a student who got her nursing degree at the same time she got her high school diploma. And I was like, wow. And we don't even have IB, which is, I forgot what international baccalaureate programs, which to me are more vigorous and they better prepare students for college versus the AP courses. Because when you look at it, the AP associates rigor with the amount of capacity of given work, where the IB requires students to research, synthesize, analyze, and construct what my wife calls meaningful thoughts, and they can start at the middle school. Yep. So what is different about what your collegiate pathways versus what we currently have?
You kind of hit it on the head.
Oh, my bad.
Letting students work to a point where in high school they are also earning credits towards an associate degree. So when they graduate, when they walk across the stage, it's not just with a high school diploma, but with also a college degree. This does wonders for continuing on after that, which is the point, right? Right now, a bachelor's degree is almost as good as a high school diploma. So we want to really get kids into positions where they are already invested. Parents are already invested. You've saved them money, and now they can go on to getting a full bachelor's degree. Lots of those credits are transferable, so that now they're not having to come out of pocket $100,000 for a degree.
And I don't know, because I haven't researched it, so I don't mind saying it. Would there be a cost, additional cost to the student, or an increase possibly within the budget, or to be something, a partnership between the colleges and the high school or Charles County Public Schools, where to some degree that is often free?
Right.
I don't know.
But obviously, that's something that would have to be fleshed out. In my mind, this is something that would be free to the students. This is an opportunity for students, and it's also an opportunity for the college to build a relationship and be a part of the community with the school system. You would have to also imagine that a lot of those students would then go on to continue at that college. So it's making an investment in them, knowing that they're going to get a return on the end.
Okay. Now, the other thing you talked about was the teacher evaluation systems, where you stated that basically you wanted to make them fair, Well, can you give us a little insight on what you mean? I know what you mean, but can you give the public a general insight of what you're discussing in terms of that?
It's really difficult to speak specifically without having those teachers in that system's perspective. And that's where the crux of this is. How can you have an evaluation system that is being built to evaluate teachers based on people who aren't in the classroom's suggestions? How do they know what good education and teaching looks like? I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a perspective. I'm saying teachers should be involved in building that so that it is fair. They are the ones who are day to day knowing what it is when little Johnny comes in with a, oh, I don't really feel like learning. That's not you come in and you observe that as an administrator or somebody who's evaluating you, and you're saying, I'm not engaging little Johnny. Well, what is little Johnny going through? Is there a mechanism to understand what little Johnny's going through and how my teaching might be impacted by that as a teacher in that classroom? Those types of things aren't considered.
So it seemed like it's, excuse me, it seemed like it's lacking that qualitative reasoning or rationale behind it. It's sort of like, okay, your overall student achievement was, a 2 out of a 5. But why?
But why?
Well, they failed or they didn't do this. Okay, why? They didn't come to school. Why? So, and based on the evaluations I've looked at, the only time you really can offer those type of qualitative reasoning or responses is in your rebuttal if you feel you weren't evaluated fairly. So that is something that is a universal issue, and if elected, I'm assuming that you would have to have these discussions with the union or the association because I think it does need to be refixed. And I talk about this, in my book when I talk about the good and bad education system. That is one of the issues in which I haven't been an educator. So, so moving on. So I did a unscientific poll in two Facebook groups, and I wanted to know I want to know from the general public, what are your top 3 issues? So their top 3 issues or concerns were school safety, teacher recruitment, retention, student, staff, mental health, and then I think the latter part was drugs and alcohol. So I'm going to touch on each one to get your opinion of what you feel the situation is, and then what are some possible solutions. So first, we'll start with school safety.
So I'm going to speak in general terms in school safety, because we all know right now that there's this ugly thing going around our country where schools are like soft targets, right? I'm not talking about school shootings on the larger scale, and then we can talk about smaller school safety issues. But we have to, as a community, come together and figure out what that problem is. It's not a problem that can be solved in a vacuum. It's not just a Charles County problem. It's a problem as a whole. We need to come up with preventative measures. We need to come up with some kind of use of technology to help us deal with these problems. There's things out there that we could be using to surveil and have control of locking down and emergency notification systems. We're still stuck in the Stone Age when it comes to that. And we need to get our community involved in making those decisions.
Excuse me. Next was teacher recruitment retention. And I also wanted to slide in because I got slapped on my wrist for not stating that. And it wasn't, I didn't do it on purpose. I guess because I'm an educator, that's how I think. But support staff as well, because they are vital to everything that we do. We can't function without the support staff. So when you look at the overall recruitment retention, what is one way you would try to assist with addressing that?
You're going to leave me just one?
Well, okay. Well, I'm sorry, my bad. give me the 3 ways.
First, I'm biased as an educator. I'm completely biased, and it's okay that I'm biased. Everybody in this country in 2020, after we got to lockdown and students were sitting on computers learning, started to have an idea of what teachers were actually doing. And I thought that there was a moment there where the The nation was going to come together and say, wow, we're not doing enough for our teachers. But as we've gotten further and further away from COVID, we've gotten further and further away from realizing what teachers are doing and on a day-to-day basis. First and foremost, competitive compensation. Teachers per capita with other professionals in other fields with the same level of education, teachers are about 20% behind them in pay. That's crazy.
Or more. Yeah.
Or more,
yeah.
on average. That's crazy. Teachers shouldn't have to go out and find other jobs to supplement their income. Teachers are professionals. Professional development should be something that is given to teachers, not just for the classroom that they're teaching in, but helping them be lifelong learners. As a lifelong learner, I'm better at advocating for my students to be a lifelong learner. We should be doing more. I think next year it goes up to about $3,000 a year per teacher, up to, I think it tops out at $500,000 for the entire school system, where teachers can get $3,000 back towards going to school. It's not enough. Not only is that not enough, but it's limited to, I can only go and study what I'm doing in the school. Now I can't further, if I wanted to go and get a special ed cert, I have to pay for that myself because I'm not a special ed teacher. But becoming a special ed certified teacher would help the school. So why wouldn't we invest in teachers in that way?
What do you think that the school systems are not doing in terms of retention? Because you can do all the recruitment in the world, but if you recruit 500 teachers and you lose 300, you're 200 in the hole.
Well, by investing in the teacher, in professional development, continuing education, in housing credit, tax credits for living in the county, and like, you show me that you appreciate what I'm doing. I can't pay you as much as I want to, but I can do things that are going to help you be better.
And what about in regard to our support staff as well? Whether it's our IAs, our administrators,
our TAs, our teacher assistants, our secretaries, our janitorial staff, they should all have those type of benefits as well. We should be looking to engage them and help them grow. We're bettering the community as a whole by investing in them. We should have a teachers college at CSM where teachers can go and take classes. Not just teachers, but support staff and everybody else who's working in a school should be able to go and take classes. Not necessarily towards a degree, but professionally getting better at whatever it is that they're trying to pursue.
Okay.
Those types of things will help us like we're appreciated.
Sorry, excuse me. It's like we both have coughing. Good thing we on the monitor. I don't have a coding thing. So you mentioned COVID, and I think COVID opened, well, it didn't open my eyes, but only because, I suffer from mental health. But when it comes in regard to student staff health, it seems like COVID exacerbated
absolutely
what was already there. So what are some things you would like to see to address this?
I think we need to expand access to mental health professionals within schools for both counseling services for students and staff, to address the emotional well-being that everybody has to deal with emotional issues, not just people who suffer from diagnosed conditions. Like, I'm a human being. I can get stressed. I can get burned out. So having access to a professional in school where I can go while I'm at work and say, hey, I need to talk to somebody. I think that having training programs to provide educators with the knowledge to be able to recognize it in students so that we are able to catch it before it becomes too serious. Those things are important. Preventative measures. And then again, we got to build partnerships in our community that help educators recognize signs within themselves. Having self-aware of what I'm going through so I don't burn out.
Yeah, I think the thing that's always frustrated me is the administration's, I guess, lack of empathy when it comes to a teacher dealing with a traumatic experience, because they can't bring it into school. Students do it all the time because they don't know how to deal and how to cope. And one of the questions I had before we go to the next topic, it deals more with testing. And what I mean with that, we test students all the time. but we don't test their mental health before they take the test. So if I have a student who comes in pissed off at me, yelling, I'm like, whoa, whoa. I know 9 times out of 10 don't have nothing to do with me. But guess what? They're required to take that test today.
Yep.
And you expect them to do well.
And you hold it against them when they don't.
Yeah. And me, that's one of my pet peeves because we don't test the student before the test. As an educator, I used to do that. I would have 5 questions. Did you have a good weekend? What did you do? And I would use that and like, oh, I see why they messed up on the test. Or it wasn't too many who did well when they had a bad weekend.
Right.
But
and as a teacher, again, that goes back to the knowing what that policy that you're putting in place is going to actually do in my classroom. As a teacher, when I'm giving an assessment to anybody, same as you, I want to get the feel of the room. What mindset are we in? What kind of day are we going to have? If I notice that we're not having the best day, I can make the call. You know what, guys, we're gonna postpone this. How's your day going? What's going on? Having the autonomy in my classroom to be able to stop teaching and actually make connections with my students are important. But here we are, we have all these state regulated tests that we have to do, and we have to do them on this date at this time. And that's
and some like right after like a spring break. I'm like,
we're bulldozing students and testing them, over testing them. And we're not really caring about their mental health, their mental capacity. What is this test doing to help the student? Not just help the school get money or the school system get money, or to say, look what we're doing. If you look at the test scores in Charles County overall, I think we're at like 46% of students test proficient in math. And I think it's
went up a little bit.
I think it's down to like 12% in reading.
Yeah,
there's something not working, and we're okay with that. It's not because the teachers aren't teaching. It's because we're not paying attention to the whole student.
Okay. The last particular topic in terms of public interest, and it's a sensitive one because there's a lot of blame when it comes to drugs. I wouldn't necessarily say alcohol, but drugs and weapons, but they're all lumped in the same because it to some degree ties into school safety. But for me, it's difficult to put all that blame on the school. You know, as soon as if there has not a week has not gone by where I've not seen something on a Facebook page where drugs were uncovered, a weapon was uncovered, whether it was a BB gun, a real gun, or whatever. So how as a board member do you convey to the community that the system is doing all it can to combat the drugs and alcohols and weapons in the schools?
So you're exactly right. Like, schools aren't a welcoming environment for these things, right? We're not creating environments where, first of all, you have access to any of these things. We're not creating environments where we're okay with these things happening. That happens at home, and it happens at your kids' friends' homes. It happens in the community. We have to do a better job of preventative education for the students and the parents and the community. We have to do a better job of working closely with our law enforcement so that we're addressing these problems in advance. We have to do a better job of community awareness, having discussions, open and honest discussions about what's going on. As a parent, I am hyper aware of everything that is in my home and how my students, my children, are exposed to those things. That's a sensitive topic to talk about. If your child brings home an edible, a gummy that they got from somebody that looks like candy, well, did the teacher give it to them? Did the janitor give it to them? No, that thing came from somebody's home. So we have to be able to have those discussions in a forum that, you know, is safe to have. We're not pointing fingers, but we're actually having a conversation so that, like you said, school safety.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing, kids are going to be kids. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it wrong. You know, I look at some of these parents, I shake my head like, you must have been a bona fide saint. You had to be. You had to be a bona fide saint. Yeah. To think that every parent is going to know what's going on in their child's life.
And
I thought I was slick. I was slick in some things as a kid, but my mom knew some things. I'm like, oh, I didn't know you knew that. And I was shaking my head, but she was monitoring.
right. Know when to step in and let
Yeah.
your kids fall, and know when to let them, make some mistakes.
Okay. So we're about to wrap up, but one question I had to ask because it was brought to my attention, and I was like, well, I'll ask the question because to me it's a viable question that I would ask of anybody running for the board. And I say this for those that are watching. I don't care what you do. I'm going to ask, how will you be able to balance the time with your current job and being on the board of education? Because it's not a 1 month it's not a 1 month meeting, like once a month thing.
Absolutely.
I know what the job entails. So quickly, how will you be able to balance that out?
I mean, the advantage that I have is that I'm in education. So these things are things that I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis anyway. But I mean, like anybody else, time management is important. Prioritizing things that need to be prioritized are important. Having a wife who is supportive and understands that if elected, that there's some things that have to come off my plate and go on her plate so that I can put my focus where it needs to be in focusing on this job. And taking things day by day, knowing that every day is not going to be a win, and learning from the mistakes that I'm going to make, and then doing the best that I can going forward from that point.
Okay. So before I close out, I always try to end with some humor. I throw out 5 words, and you just tell me what comes to your mind in 1 word or 2 words. So I'm going to start out. So there's no rhyme or reason in the order. So we're going to start out with favorite football team.
Detroit Lions.
Why? No, I'm just kidding. Blue Fi. I don't. So
I'm a brother of Phi Beta Sigma
that is.
Fraternity Incorporated, founded at Howard University in 1914.
It's all good, Pete. That's a Divine Nine humor we have, but yeah, I definitely know. Family.
I'm sorry.
Family.
The reason for being. Family is everything. Family is our legacy. So
Restorative practices.
Making sure we're not over penalizing kids for being kids, showing them that the reason they made these mistakes and how they made these mistakes are avoidable so that they can do better.
And civility.
Humbleness. Be humble.
All right. Well, any last words before we close off? How people can reach you, anything like that?
I just want people to know that I want to be an advocate for you. I want to be a voice for you. I want to be a partner. This is not some position that I'm trying to use to build me up and become something else. I'm not looking to be a bigger something in politics in Charles County. I want to be an educator. That's who I am. That's who I've been. And I want to bring my experience to the table and fight for what you want.
Right. So look, I want to thank Chris. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to let the general public know what your platform is, and I also will have that put out. I'll have all the contact information. So if anybody wants to reach out to Chris and get further information on his platform, him speak, whatever, that's entirely up to you. But I wish you, as well as the rest of the candidates, the best of luck in the upcoming primary. And I will be in touch if I have any other additional questions or anything like that. So once again, appreciate your time.